Welcome to the Not Snowboarding Podcast, a delightfully tasteful glimpse into the other side of snowboarding.
Thanks to everyone who's ever given me an opportunity and believed in me, and thanks for all the support from everybody over the years. And I just feel so lucky and honored to have had such a great career, and I'm really excited to give back to snowboarding in another way.
Welcome to the Not Snowboarding Podcast, where each week we bring you a long-form conversation with an interesting, funny, and or inspiring person in the snowboarding industry. You just heard from today's guest, Laura Hadar. Laura, as you may know, has just announced her retirement from professional snowboarding. But as one chapter ends, another begins. And as we discuss on the podcast today, Laura is going to go on to do very big things in the snowboarding industry. Just not in front of the camera, although my gut tells me that maybe we haven't seen the last of Laura. We'll just have to see what the future holds. Before we get into the episode, I want to do two things. First, thank you for all of the downloads, reviews, and subscriptions in iTunes, Facebook shares, Instagram likes, retweets, text messages, phone calls, emails, and even the constructive criticisms. It really means a lot. When I started this podcast, I took the tact of, let's just try this as an experiment. There were no set goals, no milestones to reach. I just wrote out a list of 100 or so people in the snowboarding industry that I wanted to talk to. And I started reaching out. It seems to be going pretty well so far. Thanks to you, the podcast has just recently received over 10,000 downloads. Quite frankly, I don't know if that's a good or a bad or average for a podcast. I don't know what the benchmark is or what it should be. But I do know that the podcast has positively impacted my life, and I've heard the same from many others. Plus, it's been really fun. So thank you again. The second thing is really kind of a housekeeping item. If you happen to have listened to episode 3 with David Zemmons from Anarchy.com, you may have heard us talking about a trip to Mount Bohemia, located in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Well, that's happening this week, and some of the things that we take for granted as modern conveniences nowadays, things like cell phones and Wi-Fi, are not really to be depended on up there. So where I'm going with all this is that there's a huge possibility that next week's episode will be delayed from its normal Sunday release. Just as an FYI, the podcast is not slipping per se, as I was accused of last time when I released the episode just a day late. That said, let's jump into the chat that AJ and I had with Laura.
It's always been a joke of mine that I can go through the clothes I'm wearing and guaranteed they're either free or from the thrift store.
And you find the best stuff there. I got like this Dream Team USA basketball jacket from the thrift store that was made of like Tyvek, and it was like the same stuff they use on like the siding of houses for like insulation.
Oh my God.
And it was like Kellogg. They're like, "Did you get that from a cereal box?" And it was sick. Like that thing had John Stockton was on there, the mailman Karl Malone from Utah Jazz. It had everybody. Larry Bird. I know, right? Like,
yeah,
I was hyped.
So if there was a thrift store in a Walmart, would you go there?
No, I don't go to Walmart. I think last time I was in Walmart was probably at least 10 years ago.
They still don't pay their workers.
No, they don't pay their workers at all. And the Waltons are like the wealthiest family in the country, if not more. They're just messed up.
I think the U.S. government pays them more than Walmart does.
Yeah, well, what they do is they keep their workers under 35 hours, so they can't get any benefits. So then they all end up working minimum wage and then have to get on health care for the government and food stamps and all that.
There's also this effect, and there's a documentary about it from the perspective of a product producer. So say that you produce T-shirts that get really popular, and then you sell them to Walmart, and you have this one successful year where you've had your best year ever, you're making millions of dollars off of selling it to Walmart. Walmart comes back and says, okay, you have to use our production supply chain to do this because we can do it at a much less expensive price, and they start to control your company. Basically, it's called the Walmart effect, where you think you've made it really big, but you've really just become enslaved to them, and your margins are cut to like nothing to get that Walmart lowest price.
Sounds like the American dream.
I think that happened. I think that happened with Rubbermaid. I think Rubbermaid was American-based manufacturing, and they started getting big with Walmart, and they did that to Rubbermaid, and they're like, you have to manufacture overseas.
Oh, it's so sad.
Yeah, I think the documentary is called The High Cost of Low Price.
Oh, yeah. I think I've seen that title. I have not watched it yet, but next time I'm in the mood for some depressing American news, I'll definitely make sure to tune into that.
It really applies to lots of different business models. You're an entrepreneur, you have a shop, and depending on who you're trying to sell to, if you kind of shop for the pie in the sky, like the biggest consumer out there to come and get you, then that effect would essentially happen. You just kind of remove the Walmart name. But it's funny. It's a hard relationship to operate a business kind of harmoniously without trying to completely sell out, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to sell out, but my partner won't let us. He hates them all. This is like it's a big thing, like that we're not the mall, and that's the whole point. But I just dream about being in the mall because I'm like, how many people shop at the mall every day?
It's dying though. It's maybe it's different in Salt Lake, but the malls near me, I'm in the Washington D.C. area, and I noticed just kind of like a gut check, not like a real number, but I just noticed that I could drive near them this year in between Thanksgiving and Christmas, where in the past it was always like gridlock.
Yeah.
So what? Yeah. Maybe you could tell a little bit about what the concept is behind Feis, and kind of share a little bit of when you decided to start it. I think it's been going on for like 7 years now, and you were right in the middle of your snowboarding career at that point in time.
Yeah. Well, really, I wanted to open a buy-sell trade. Kind of like as soon as I started getting paid to snowboard, I was like, whoa, what am I doing with my life? I could do other things. And then I really got this idea of a buy-sell trade, and every summer I would get really excited about it and put some energy into it and start writing a business plan and looking for spaces. And then every fall, I'd just start snowboarding and forget about it. And my business partner was actually one of the people that was helping me look for spaces for that. And then we kind of drifted in and out of each other's lives. We weren't super close by any means. And then he had done some time in New York, and he really was really attracted to all the boutiques in that city, like Reed Space and
probably like Supreme.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of that one shoe store that's so fancy. I can't remember right now. But and then so we met up at a bar, and he was like, just randomly, and he's like, hey, I'm gonna open this store. Do you want to do it with me? And I was like, hell yeah. So, and I had just gotten into streetwear. I had found out about 10 Deep, which is a pretty big company in the streetwear scene. And I had ordered a sweatshirt online, and I just loved the fact that nobody else had it. Like, I think that's always been kind of my thing. I've always just been like, I want to be different, man. So, and that's kind of our shop. We carry just, streetwear that you can't really get anywhere else in the city. And, some upper end accounts with Nike. We have like a specialty boutique account. So we get a lot of their quick strikes and tier 0 stuff, which just means they're more limited shoes, harder to find. And
do you have people waiting outside of the door when those release?
Yeah, we do. We've had a couple shoes where there's been camp outs. So we've had, I think it was like the Yeezys, like 2 summers ago. We had people.
You got the Yeezys?
Yeah, we had people.
The Red Octobers?
Not the Red Octobers.
Oh,
those never came out because he quit Nike or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so now they're using that Red October fabric on a bunch of different shoes. Like these Kobe's just released, and they have that same red perforated leather. I don't know. Sneaker talk is crazy.
Are there that many hypebeasts in Salt Lake that are lining up and camping out?
No, not that many, but for some of those shoes, like those Yeezys and the Corks, those are really like they can. I mean, these are diehard sneakerheads. Obviously, they're camping out. This is like what they're into. But I've told all my like dirtbag, like dumpster diving friends, like, man, you should just camp out. Like, you could buy the shoes for $250 and flip them on eBay the next day for like $1,500, $2,000 for some of the more exclusive stuff. You know.
Yeah, that's actually how I got the down payment money for the house that I'm podcasting from right now. Is that I worked at a skateboard shop when the SBs were going through their exponential growth curve, and just selling out the moment. We weren't smart enough to do release dates for the first couple years. They would just come in, and whoever was in the store, we'd have people like sneakerheads like hanging out in the store waiting for the UPS or the FedEx guy. They actually all come via FedEx. And we would just like unpack them, and then the phones would go wild. And, some people would be like fighting over like, oh, I just sold this to somebody on the phone. And the dude would be right here like, no, I'll pay double. They're like bidding each other up. And then we, as the employees, we would all take a pair and buy them at wholesale and sell them at, 20 times retail.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's definitely a way to make money.
Do you think that's like ruining, like, I don't know if you have, how invested you are or the opinion on it, but like that's kind of ruining sneaker culture, if there's such a thing, that there's a resale market?
Yeah, I mean, I'm around a lot of sneakerheads. I would definitely not consider myself one. But they definitely hate on resellers. And if you are camped out, I mean, and you're a reseller and those guys know it, like you're spending, 24 hours plus with people who are going to dog on you and talk shit to you. And it's crazy. It's a weird phenomenon, but I just try and keep an open mind, and I figure everyone's into whatever they're into. And like my job is just to not be the mall, like when I'm at Feist, it's like, we're giving those people a place where they don't have to go to the mall. And I think that's good enough for me.
Did riding for Nike help with that relationship for the store at all?
When we first opened, Nike is really hard to get an account with, And when we first opened, they had still not approved our account. And I kind of went up above to this guy who I became really close with, and he's really high up in Nike, and I was like, dude, we don't have any shoes in our store for opening night. Like, is there anything you can do? And he just comped us like probably like a $3,000 order or something, and just to make sure we had Nike product in the store on our opening night. And then from there, our account has had nothing to do with me being a pro snowboarder. I'll talk to like our reps before, and I'm like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm on the snowboard team, and they're like, what?
So there's like, no relation.
Right. It's so different. It's just like Nike's a huge, huge corporation, so everything is very segregated.
Did you have any apprehension about how we were kind of talking about Walmart before and how Nike's kind of been maybe had some similar lines drawn?
No, I think Nike and Walmart, I mean, from what I know, Nike had a lot of problems with like their labor issues in the late 90s, maybe even in the early 2000s. And I haven't dug deep into if they currently have any labor issues overseas.
I applied, but they said my hands were too big. I don't know what that
means. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about it. It's as far as that goes, I don't really think there's anyone who's like, who's on that mass market that's doing really great things anyways, It's like, if I buy 32 boots versus Nike boots, like, do you really think there's a big difference of who's making them overseas?
Right. Yeah. That's the issue of consumer culture, really, is
exactly
how long fixing that problem is more of a personal consumption choice. I don't need a new thing all the time. I'm going to use this thing as much as I can, and maybe I'll even take it to somebody to repair it.
Totally. Yeah.
I mean, sorry. Yeah, I was just saying that's probably more of like a globalization issue where, for one place to have cheap goods, like another place is going to have to make it even cheaper and probably not what we consider the best working conditions. And,
Yeah. Well, our consumer culture is just like out of this world. And I think That's the one thing. It's been funny, like being on the other side of it, working at Feist, and I work like on the floor. I'm there doing sales, and it's really wild to see how people use buying stuff for entertainment, and just how it's just wild to me. I don't know. I never like had a lot of money and was like going to nice stores and buying nice things. It would be like a very special occasion. Like if I went and bought a really nice hoodie, like, man, like I'm going to wear that hoodie to the ground. And I cannot believe I spent that much on that hoodie, Whereas we get a few of those consumers, but we also get a lot of the consumers that I don't even think they think about it. It's just like, oh, sweet, another hoodie. Okay. And then like 2 weeks later, grab another hoodie.
I got to the point working retail like you on the floor where, and it was especially with the group of sneakerheads that brought in just a different culture into the skate shop.
Yeah.
But what I would do is kind of listen to their self-talk. And I would always hear the same thing, like, oh, well, you know what I mean? You need the new one. And we would even sometimes wear Nikes on those Saturday mornings when they would be released. But that was like my one pair of Nikes. And it happened to be that they were cool because they were old. Yeah. But that would be it. And then there was a little bit of a bond, a little bit of an icebreaker because I had shoes that they were into. Yeah. But I was really almost like a social experiment, like trying to understand the mentality of like, it was just always I need the new thing. I'm like, I don't, but I'll ring you up for it.
Yeah, totally. I remember we had this, like, there's always like those few sales that you remember, and I was ringing this one kid up, and he was young, he must have been like his early 20s or something, and he was buying a whole bunch of stuff, and I was like, so just chatting him up, at the register, and I was like, so what do you do? And he's like, oh, I work at the mine. And there's in Salt Lake, like 20 miles to the west of us, is one of the world's largest copper mines, Rio Tinto. And it's a really, really nasty place, really bad for the environment in general. And he was like this 22-year-old, like working in the mine and living, in this in Copperton, I think is the town, where the water is so polluted that they don't have to pay for city water because it's so polluted. And he's just spending all his money at the shop. And I was just chatting him up. I was like, so you travel? And he's like, no, I just work. And, now I got all this fresh gear. And I just think that's very common in my industry with that retail. It's like a lot of these kids, they've never been to Mexico even, but they have like really fresh kits, their shoes are awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, he probably got money to blow. He finna hit the club. He's looking fresh. He's going out.
That's his thing. And that's like totally cool. And I understand that, but it's just so different from my values. Right. My values are so much more like save as much as you possibly can and explore as much as you possibly can, so it's just always funny to me. That's why I'm kind of like, okay, maybe I should find a new job. I joke around with my partner. I don't know if I should work the floor today. I might be talking people out of sales.
Well, I've felt bad ringing people up before. And then you have to realize that some people just want to do that. This is their thing. It's okay for them to spend this money. And even though it's not the way that you would. And then there's other people where you can tell like, hey, this person's actually extended. We're going, we're running the third credit card because the first two were denied. Yeah. And okay.
So awkward.
So
yeah.
You're feeding the addiction, is what you guys are saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, like I keep going back to, we are giving them a place to go that is not a corporation. For a lot of these sneakers that we're getting, their only other option in Utah is House of Hoops, which is owned by Foot Locker. Foot Locker is a giant corporation. So it's like, when I really think about it, I'm like, no, we're doing good. Like we're doing the community a service by being here, and people really appreciate it. And there's a lot of people who come through too, once a year, and they just need a new pair of sneakers, and they know that they don't have to go to the mall. And I think that's really special.
And not only that, but congratulations on 7 years, by the way. I can't tell you in the past 7 years how many skate shops, snowboard shops, boutiques have came and gone. Lots of them within the year that they launch.
Yeah, we opened in '08, like during the peak of the recession. So it's pretty crazy that we've been able to survive. And I think it really comes down to the fact that we're offering a place that's just different. We also do the art gallery. So we're in a really old building downtown, one of the oldest buildings downtown. And then, so we've got really big walls and, open floor space. And so we've done my partner has been really into art for a long time. So every month we do a different art show. And we were doing national shows the first couple of years and flying the artists out and flying all their shit out. And then we realized we were really not seeing a profit from that.
Right.
So we've been keeping it more local now. We do about one national show a year. But that's really cool, and that brings another aspect of the community and people who wouldn't necessarily, people like us who maybe don't consume that much, still have a place where they can collaborate and connect with people in the community.
Yeah, it brings in a different person that wouldn't otherwise even maybe go to the store, and then they're going to go like, oh, this is cool stuff, or I have a nephew or so-and-so that needs to know about this. It's just a very organic way to, one, kind of give back to the community, and two, it's marketing at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
So when I was a kid, I always told my mom that I would retire at 40. And I'm about to turn 37, and I don't have nearly enough money to retire, but you're talking about retiring from snowboarding now. What's going on there?
It's been a joke for a little while, especially with my friends, probably for the past 6 months, that I was just, well, I'm retired now, but I mean, it really just comes down to the fact that, I mean, let's be honest, the paychecks have dried up. So I'm just trying to take that story into my hands and just let everybody know that it's not like that I'm not out there filming video parts every day and getting footage and stuff. It's that I have to get a job so that I can pay my mortgage and my phone bill and stuff, So I always thought it was funny, what happened to the pro snowboarder? The guy, I was explaining it to my friend the other day. It's there's the Olympians and all those guys, and then there's the blue collar snowboarders like me and Jordan Mendenhall, who just retired. I don't know if he's claiming that quite as much, but it's people like us, we'll just slip through the cracks, and eventually you're like, oh shit, what happened to that person? So I didn't want that to happen. I thought, and I've talked about this with a bunch of different friends over the past 6 months too, man, should I just come out and do some PR thing that's hey, I retired, just to try and open up some new opportunities within the snowboard community, because it feels like when people want to pay you to snowboard, they'll call you.
Right.
They'll find you. All my sponsors always found me. I don't think that I had one sponsor that I was giving my resume to and sending them a video part. Most of them, they found me. So no one's found me. So I just figure I'll let everyone know that I'm ready to do something else. And that means going public with the fact that I'm not snowboarding anymore.
Right. But you haven't quite identified yet, as far as I'm aware, what that something else is, right?
No, I haven't. I was thinking about it last night. Right before I went to bed, I had this cool fantasy of working with a company that's, already well established and that hasn't put a lot of time or marketing or money into their women's brand, and helping them grow their women's brand from the ground up and do ground level marketing and work with different resorts to set up, Burton does a really good job of it. Roxy does a pretty good job. I mean, obviously a really good job of it. GNU does a good job. They have, a strong women's team. They have strong representation. And then they also do a lot of ground level marketing. And I was thinking, I thought of a couple different companies where I'm man, they have one or two, maybe get really amazing professional females on their program. But when you think of that company, you don't think about their women's program at all. It doesn't even register, You just think about mostly the guys on their program. So I thought that would be a cool idea.
Yeah, and really just create your own job, right? Roll out to them with, hey, this is the business plan. GNU, Burton, Roxy, these other companies have done it. It's proven. Let's just see what they're doing, emulate it, and maybe tweak it and do a couple things better here and there. And this is what I can do for you.
Yeah, and I think, I really know snowboarding. Like I'm pretty good at it still, and I'm just hitting my stride really. And so, if I could work with a company that is ready to like use me as a liaison, not just as a writer, but as somebody who can really hit the retailers and hit the consumers on more of a ground level basis, where as a pro snowboarder, you're kind of too busy to be talking to shops or be doing random demos all the time and stuff like that. But I'm really good with people. I mean, I'm a people person, so I just got to get to the people. You know what I'm saying?
I hear you. So
do you think? Oh, sorry, Nate. Do you think there's that women are in a better position now in snowboarding than maybe when you started as a professional snowboarder, or even just as a sponsored snowboarder?
Not necessarily. I think that the generation that I grew up filming with, like the original As If crew, we, in my eyes, there's kind of a clogging of the feed as far as girls in videos, and it seems like all these younger girls, like the Too Hard crew and a lot of these younger girls in the streets, they just aren't getting any love because all these sponsors have already invested 10 years in other names, so they're just afraid to start marketing these younger girls. And I think the younger girls, it seems like they're all just like the successful ones are all in the contest. It's just that's how you become successful as a girl, and that's how it was when I first started riding. And then it was our crew, that As If and all that Mischief Films. We were the first ones to really like break into filming for girls and not just have it be the one token girl in snowboard film, but have it be like, no, I don't do contests. I just film all year long. Like before our generation, that wasn't heard of really. And now it seems like it's going back to that. Like the girls who are getting paid just do contests,
Right. Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
No, yeah, that's what. But I was saying, like, you mentioned like Too Hard, and I just see them as like, maybe they weren't getting the coverage they thought they should.
Yeah.
So let's just do it ourselves, And like, there's a couple other girl crews that are like that, like Out of the Kitchen and Jetpack, and I think that's rad. I think that's awesome. Like, if you're not getting the coverage, like, why don't you just do it yourself? And I think they've definitely sort of done something pretty cool. In my opinion, but yeah, the funding probably isn't there because they're doing like Kickstarter program or Kickstarter campaigns to try to get the funding. Their
skill level is there, but there's nobody has said, okay, I'm gonna invest in these girls. Like I'm going to, Danielle Patterson, she's probably the one that has been picked up, and I think she's getting like a little money for travel, but she's not like making a living off of snowboarding. And I just think there's been a bottleneck, like our crew that came up, like it's time for some new girls in the industry. And maybe that's just the industry isn't investing in these young girls. And maybe that's where my job comes in, to find all these younger girls and like market them. And that's what it is. It's like, you can't sell a snowboarder or a product without some marketing and some investing and like creating an image. And that sounds very corporate and like lame, I feel like, but it's just the reality of the situation. I mean, when it comes down to it, when money is involved, it's a business, so you have to look at it like, okay, well, how do we make this business succeed?
Yeah, some of that is just what's going on in the industry in general. When you were coming through your career, there was a market channel for what I would call a video pro or a core snowboarder, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of disappeared because I can go out and if I'm good enough, have my video pro on Instagram same day. and nobody's going to go out and walk into a shop and buy a video anymore. So this is really kind of culled the herd for both guys and girls. But I think because the percentage of girls in snowboarding is less, right? It on the surface looks like a bigger problem for girls.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm going to think about that when I try and pitch my next job, and I'll be like, yeah, we can just do all these Instagram videos I've heard, and we'll start.
That's my attention span now. If there's a 3-minute video online and it doesn't start off, and if there's like words at the beginning and like some intro music, I'm like 30 seconds in going, I'm over it. I could have seen like 10 tricks on a good Insta edit.
Yeah, I'm with you. I can barely watch videos these days, honestly.
I only watch snowboarding through Snapchat stories nowadays.
That's awesome. I should get Snapchat just for that.
You should. That's what I'm thinking. I'm going to release my whole part on Snapchat stories. So it'll be up for 24 hours, and I got to film it all in one day, and that'll be it. So there's going to be some, I don't know. It'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to that project.
Yeah, that sounds like an awesome video part. Definitely want to see that.
That's like, what's that?
Add me on Snapchat.
What's that?
I will.
What's that Asian art where they like do these amazing drawings in the sand, and then when they've spent hours, like lifetimes, they just rake it over and start again? Mm-hmm. That's what Snapchat's like to me. Especially if you put out like real good content there, because it's gone. Like, why would you do that and just let it go?
That's awesome.
So what was the transition like for you from kind of being more of a street rider to big mountains? I mean, I just saw your kind of like your farewell retirement part, and then riding on the World Snowboard Tour this past year. That's a huge transition that is natural for some snowboarders, but a lot of them don't ever really make.
I think it just was my transition as a human. You know, when I was younger, I just wanted to like party and be in the streets, I feel like. And also it's so much easier. And that's probably the real answer. It's so much easier to get footage in the streets than it is in the backcountry. You know, it's like just money alone, you know, like I could have never afforded, like I didn't have sponsors that were going to put me in a helicopter when I was 21 or 22, you know, like I had sponsors who were like, oh, you know, you want to go on a trip to Denver, you know, here's $400. So I think that just naturally came as I progressed as a snowboarder and took it a little more serious. And, you know, I remember I had this team manager that I was telling like, oh, my dream is to like film with absinthe and I really want to get in the backcountry. And he just said, you know, you're really good in the streets. People know you in the streets. You should just stick to that. It's really hard to get footage in the backcountry. And I think you'll just find you're more successful in the streets. And I kind of just walked away from that conversation like, well, looks like this is my last year snowboarding. I'm going to go ride some powder. And then I ended up, you know, having another 3 or 4 years. And that was when I started getting serious in the backcountry and just getting myself lined up with people who are doing more of that.
That's funny advice. And some of the thought that you had to have there, you know, here, this is kind of the direction your heart's pulling you, right? Like into the mountains. And he's saying, no, keep doing what you're doing if you want to continue to have a career. But yeah, I think it's a good thing that you followed, followed your path and went into the mountains. Obviously, probably, you know, if you were going to continue to ride street, that's harder on your body, right?
Yeah, really hard on your body. And just, I don't know, the lifestyle is way different too. It's like a lot of late nights and just being in the city all the time, you know. And I had started going up to Washington, and I just liked the more mountain lifestyle, you know, waking up really early and getting out on the hill, you know, 6, 7 a.m. and putting a full day's work in. And then, you know, when the sun's down, you go home and you have dinner and you go to sleep. And the city street lifestyle is way different. It's just, to me, it's like just younger, you know. And obviously there's pros who are older and who are more professional and better at like keeping that in line with work and party. But I feel like to me, it was just too easy to like not take anything serious and just party all day, which was so fun, man. We had a blast. We had so many cool trips.
What was one of the most fun like rail trips you went on?
Probably going to Minneapolis and St. Paul with the Peep Show crew. That was really fun. We got a lot of stuff done, and had all the like Jonas Michelot, the Michelot brothers, and all that crew to go and hang out with, Zach Marvin and those guys, and that was super fun and wild. I think Denver, when me and Desiree Melisson, that was like, she hadn't started filming yet, and I was really backing her, and I was like, you gotta come film with us, and so we ended up, when it must have been 22, we had a really awesome trip to Denver and got a lot of really cool footage. And I think anytime you get like really cool shots that you're stoked on, it just makes the trip, You're like, oh, that was the best trip.
Kind of as a transition in subjects here, when did your awareness around food issues begin to develop?
Well, I come from like a family of foodies, as they like to say. My grandma has been, a natural foodist before it was a thing, probably. She's just very old school. She's always had a garden. My grandpa would hunt in the fall and catch fish, and he'd butcher the elk and put it all in the freezer. And my grandma would be canning, and, that was just a normal way of life. We got milk. When I was growing up, we got milk from the farm just down the road from us, raw milk and eggs. And that was before it was like hip or natural or organic. It was just, that was how it was. And then I think as my personal growth, probably, in the past like 5 or 6 years, more aware of it and more into just the whole concept behind it. I think this world is really crazy. And I think that your biggest vote is where you spend your money. And if you want to see things change, then you should be aware of who you're giving your money to. And I think food is the most direct way that we can have an impact on this world. And so I'm just pretty passionate about trying to keep my dollar in the right hands and with the right people. And that means like shopping at farmers markets and buying organic and doing what I can when I can,
Yeah, I totally agree. And when I first became like really passionate about it, I started to make my own garden, and it was probably only 20 feet by 10 feet or so. It wasn't huge, but I had like corn, strawberries, tomatoes, carrots, a couple other things. And it was a fucking battle. I've got deer coming in. As soon as something looks good, I've got deer coming in from one side. I've got birds eating my strawberries the day before they're ready, and the tomatoes. And then I've got groundhogs coming in and pulling up the carrots. I probably got like 10% yield out of everything that was there. I would go out and check, and it would be like, okay, tomorrow this is going to be ripe. I'll pick it, and I'll come out, and it'll be gone. So then you put up a fence, and you start to. I mean, it's a lot of work. How do you balance some of the gardening that you've done with your travel schedule, or how have you balanced that over the past?
Roommates mostly, because the past couple of years though we have had some good gardens. I've been up in Alaska till the Alaska season is like April into beginning of May usually. So I usually miss the first planting part of the season. So my old roommate, Alex, he killed it so hard and planted a sick garden that past year. And then in the summertime, we're in the city, so we don't have a lot of problems. Like it sounds like you guys do, the groundhogs and stuff, or deer. Ours have mostly just like, earwigs eating stuff and stuff like that. But this past year I got chickens, and that kind of like took all my energy, and then we didn't get a garden in. So then I just, I was volunteered at this place called Bug Farms, which is backyard urban gardens. And they have like 3 or 4 plots just over in West Valley, which is, just 10 miles west of here. and they do a CSA and then the farmers market. And I would volunteer Fridays, from like 8 to noon. And then we'd have a big family, like lunch, farmer style. And then they'd give me a full CSA share for volunteering. So I was just like eating so fat this summer. And I'll probably do that again and help out like really cool people, and just like spending a day or the morning in the garden is so awesome, so relaxing and refreshing. And I think they knew some new study just came out about dirt in your fingernails being like really good for your mental state.
I could see that, and even just kind of like ionic balancing and all those kind of woo-woo things. Say what you want about the science behind it, but it feels good to connect with the earth or the ocean, for sure. What was it about the chickens that were requiring so much work? I think about like having a chicken coop and like set it and forget it, throw them a little feed every so once in a while and get the eggs. What's the big deal?
I don't know. We went a little large on our dreams for the chicken coop. So we had this pretty elaborate chicken coop for a while, and that was just getting that done. And then I think we just really like missed the planting season. So we put in a few things, but they were really late. And then it was probably just due to some factual laziness that the garden just didn't go off. And it was honestly like my old roommate, he had planted the past 2 gardens, and then he didn't plant this one this year. And we kind of like both half-assed it, and tried to get some stuff in the ground, and then it just didn't take. And then I found this volunteering gig, and I was like, well, fuck it. I'm not going to bother wasting all that water anyways. I'll just eat this awesome food that these other people are growing and that I'm helping harvest and grow and stuff.
Did you have any residual plants just come back even though you weren't trying to maintain
Yeah, the arugula out front. Arugula is awesome. It's just like, it basically turns into like a weed, and it reseeds itself too. So we had it come back. It came back. It volunteered this in the spring, harvested a bunch, and then it kind of went to seed, and then we just spread the seeds around, and then it came back again later in the summer, and then it came back one more time. So we've had 3 rotations of arugula, just volunteer style, which is my favorite gardening term. Do you guys know that one, volunteers?
I don't. What does that mean?
It just means when you didn't plant it, and it just like a seed went, and then it grew, and it just volunteers. Like I have some volunteer daisies in my front yard last summer, and I just think it's the cutest term because it's like, oh, this plant just volunteered to grow here.
I've got rhubarb that keeps volunteering no matter how much I object.
Rhubarb's good though, right? Rhubarb pie?
It's great. Strawberry delicious. Rhubarb pie. So good. I've been making it for like 4 years.
Can you talk a little bit about your work with Food Not Bombs? Because it was something that I wasn't super aware of, but it seems like a pretty interesting organization.
Yeah, Food Not Bombs is basically just, I don't know if it's worldwide. I know it's national at least. But they just basically pick up, it's like a food bank organization, but it's a little more anarchist, I would say. There's a lot of connotations with the anarchy scene. But they just go around and pick up expired food or damaged products or whatever from the grocery stores around town, and then they distribute it in the park. And last summer? I was just a driver for them, so I'd just go and pick up food, and man, we would fill my car. It was crazy. Like Saturdays were insane. There was so much food, and this food would have just gone in the dumpster if it weren't for Food Not Bombs. I mean, literally. So it's really cool. And then we just distribute it in the park, and it's like a pretty steady scene of mostly immigrants, a lot of like old Russians, which I think is funny, and just some people, who like probably are not making that much money, and it's just like a great way to subsidize your food costs.
So do you work with grocery stores or food vendors, or is it just sort of something that you are picking up as they're throwing out? Is that kind of...
No, we work with them. You kind of set it up So they know you're coming, and and it's a tax write-off for them, so they can take the tax subsidy or whatever. So they'll like, you give them a receipt, like, one of the natural food stores would, oh, we were getting like those kiva juices, and sometimes you get kombuchas, and sometimes you get some really good stuff, and then you just give them a receipt, and then they can write it off on their taxes, and then you can distribute it to your people, your friends, and the people who need some food. So I haven't been too involved lately, but I still go and get foods from them sometimes. And sometimes it's not totally quality food, so I'll just grab it and throw it to my chickens just as a little surprise for them. But then sometimes it's like, man, I just got all these bagels and, some fresh raspberries, and they're just like free food. I mean, I can't complain.
Did anyone find the name to be kind of polarizing, or did it start any interesting conversations just based on the name of the organization?
I have no idea. I think that organization has been around for a while. I'm not like super involved with it. I just volunteered like last summer, and then I have a lot of my friends. I'm friends with like a lot of like the anarchist dumpster diver types, and they're always helping out with it, or in charge of it, or benefiting from it. So I'm not sure I think it was all just, it sounds pretty anarchist, food,
yeah.
bombs.
It strikes me kind of similar to like a PETA, right? People for the ethical treatment of animals. And that sounds like those words together sound like a good thing. Food, not bombs. It sounds like a good thing. If I walk into a giant grocery store in my neck of the woods here, just outside of Washington, D.C., and say, hey, I'm here from Food Not Bombs, it's going to be a hard sell, I would imagine, to get the relationship established just because of the name. So maybe it's a little bit different out there. They're not quite as concerned about something that sounds so liberal, right?
Yeah, I mean, we are on the West Coast, which I just feel like that says a lot about us. I don't know. Yeah, you could probably just explain what it is, and maybe they'd listen, unless they're just complete buttholes.
There's a lot of that going around here, but I give people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, why not,
As your career's progressed, you've kind of you've started to gain interest in some other activities, right? We talked about climbing and surfing a little bit the other day.
Yeah.
How did those enter your life, and which one do you like more?
Definitely climbing. Surfing is like, I've been, like maybe a little bit over a dozen times, but never consistently. And then I went to Costa Rica this past summer as my retirement party for myself. I was like, I'm going to learn how to surf, I'm going to really do this. And it's just so hard, not the actual standing up part, but the getting past the break and reading the waves. And I think it's really, really cool. And I would love to get better at it. But in honest reality, I never really see myself living around the ocean. So it just seems like kind of like a waste, And climbing is like the exact opposite. Like I started like a year and a half ago, and I could just see myself progress so fast. And it's in the mountains, and it's really similar to snowboarding or skateboarding. You go to a spot, you're doing something that's very much just on your own, but you're kind of relying on other people and their beta and stuff like that. So
some of the listeners probably won't know what beta is. Could you explain that?
Beta, I guess, is just information on whatever you're trying. It's like if they know where to put what hold to go to, or how do you explain beta? It's just like giving you information on what you're doing, Does that make sense?
Yeah, like maybe if your right hand's here, your left hand's here, and there's two holds for your feet, maybe the best spot for your feet actually isn't on one of those holds.
Exactly.
And just some of that kind of point of view, like how do I get from point A to point B on this route?
Yeah. I like, that was when I first started climbing too. I loved how they have like their whole lingo, It was so cool to just, I'm so immersed in snowboard culture, and I know it so well, and it's like so a part of who I am. And to come into this other culture where I was a complete noob and had no idea what they're talking about. Like, I just loved it. I was like, oh, it was so fun. And yeah, when I first started too, I would be like, don't tell me the rating. Just say if it's like 5 hard, like 5 easy, 5 Laura, 5 you're not going to have fun. And that, that kind of like kept me going, so I didn't get discouraged if I thought it was just like too hard of a rating. And
did you climb in the gym a bunch at first, or did you go straight to outdoor?
No, I started outdoor. I started in the in the spring. My friend Tony Pavolontes took me pretty much for my first time, and then so we just started climbing outside. And he took me up this hellish crack called the Bong Eater. I think it's like a maybe a 5'10" or something, and it sucked. And he pretty much dragged me up, you know, the last 3/4 of the climb on top rope. And I loved how he didn't let me give up, and I loved getting to the top, even though I knew it wasn't really all on my own. And I think climbing just gives me so much of what I've always gotten from snowboarding, just that sense of accomplishment and trying something really hard and putting all your energy and all your thought into it, and then failing and then getting back up and doing it and succeeding. I think that's so powerful.
For me, and I've been a climber for years, I haven't climbed much, really not at all in the last year or so. I had an injury with my hand, but it's so much like skateboarding and snowboarding, and it's like you've got this route, and each move is a different trick. And some of the tricks might be really easy, but then, like you said, that your friend drug you up it, so you're working this thing, you get to a certain point, and you miss your trick. All of a sudden, you've fallen off. Well, now you've got to go back if you're bouldering or if you're lead climbing. You were top roping, so you pretty much had the advantage of being able to start right where you had your error, which is great when you're learning for sure, because you don't have the energy to go back and do it all again. Yeah. But for some of the other methods, now you've got this fall to recover from. You've got to get back to where you were, and now you've got to analyze what you did wrong last time. And do I have the energy, the muscle power, and kind of the brain power to work my way through that move and then figure out the rest of the way up? It's a super natural progression for me and for a lot of people that I'm talking to from skateboarding and snowboarding.
Yeah, it's gotten really popular in the snowboard culture here too. Like, a bunch of snowboarders have started climbing in the past 2 years, so it's cool. I think it translates really well, and I think it's one of the coolest things ever. I'm like totally obsessed with it for sure. I just want to travel and climb. I think that would be so cool.
There's a bunch of different ways to climb, and we kind of touched on it a little bit with top roping or lead climbing. What is your favorite?
Probably lead sport is my favorite, just because I have seen the most progression in it. But I've done a lot of trad. I don't lead any trad, which is traditional climbing. But I like how in trad climbing you can really get to some crazy places, like especially down in Utah. We have such great terrain for climbing, and in southern Utah I've done a couple of the towers down there, and you're getting like really high off the ground, and it is crazy.
And what's the difference between trad climbing and lead climbing?
Like sport climbing.
Yeah, exactly.
So trad traditional is when you have your own gear, which is the pieces that you are putting into the rock to protect yourself. And those are called cams usually. And they come in different sizes. And basically you have to have a crack or, something to kind of shove this cam, this piece of metal that's, engineered to save your life and whatnot, into the crack. And then sport climbing is when there's bolts already placed on the route. So somebody has gone in with a drill and put a piece of metal, a bolt into the rock. So you're just using quick draws to attach to the bolts.
I just think of trad climbing as climbing with like a bunch of extra weight that I don't want.
Yeah, but trad climbing, you can get to some crazy places that you could never, nobody's ever going to bolt these 7 pitches and whatnot, I love how climbing's so different too. There's so many, it's, same as snowboarding. There's so many different ways you can do it and places you can do it, and different kinds, bouldering, sport, trad. There are crack climbing, I mean, that's a whole different game. I think that's really cool, really diverse.
Yeah, I think for me, bouldering is probably my favorite because it's the most accessible. You could even go bouldering, even though it's not recommended, by yourself, potentially. You could go
Exactly.
out with a mat and do your own thing, and you don't need a rope, and you can just get so much time on the rock, too.
Yeah, it's a lot quicker. It's like definitely more. It's a faster pace. It's fun. I love it all. I think it's all so cool. And my new thing is like every single thing you do is cross training for the next thing you're gonna do. You know, so I really think if you take that aspect into your life, like you can get so strong and be so prepared for the next thing you're doing because you're just getting like all these different muscles going. So I tried to just not discriminate.
Did you ever try to do like a yoga practice or anything like that along those lines?
Yeah, I do yoga. I'm kind of one of those people. I've been doing yoga for like 15 years probably, but I'm definitely one of those people that's like into it for a month or two. And then, 3 months later, I'm like, oh crap, I should do some yoga again. But it's always been a part of my practice for sure. I think it's really key just to stay in shape and stay stretched and feels really good mentally and physically.
Yeah, I think it's just to the point of what you said before, kind of that cross training. It's the ultimate cross training for me.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. And if you look at all the big guys, like, I heard you talking to Terry the other day and it's like, yeah, yoga will keep you so in shape. It's crazy. This class I've been going to recently, this Ashtanga class, like this old dude who's just so insanely flexible and you're just like, I don't think I'd ever even want to be as flexible as him necessarily, but it's just really encouraging to see that your body can age with such grace, if you take care of it and you really pay attention to it and give it some love and attention. That's exciting.
Do you think there's like, I want to say like, by doing yoga and like even like going to the gym or doing something that like, requires like cross training or working out, do you think there's like a negative connotation that with snowboarding and skateboarding, like it's not cool to do that?
No, not anymore. I feel like being healthy and fit is like the cool thing, I bet the only people who maybe think it's not cool is like the stoners who are like too stoned to think about their bodies, I think all the hip, cool kids these days are at yoga and are cross training in one way or another, I feel like being healthy is so hip right now, and yoga and all that stuff, and camping's super hip right now.
I grew up in the wrong generation. I grew up in the Sean Palmer and the whiskey videos and like party all night. You're the coolest if you're wasted and you didn't go to sleep, and then you're the first one on the chair. Like that's like the best thing. And I tried to live that way for a while, and it's not sustainable.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe that's what's happening is we're all just getting older. Because I was definitely there too. Like I definitely was like, God, party, I'm so cool. But now I'm like, I do yoga and drink lemon water in the morning. I'm so cool.
And I feel well. So I have to ask you about a question that came up when I read that retirement article the other day.
Yeah.
There's a quote in there that was interesting, and it just said, I love skiers.
Oh, you and Nate have something in common.
Whoa, no. What is that about?
I don't see what all the hate is about. I mean, who I don't like is stupid people. I don't care if you snowboard or if you ski. If you're stupid, then I probably think you're stupid. I hate all the like hate on each other. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of skiers that I think are stupid, and I don't think they're stupid because they're skiers. I just think they're stupid. And probably because they have an attitude because they're skiers. But like I just went home recently and connected with some old middle school buddies, and they're like such badass skiers. And we rode Aspen Mountain, and Aspen Mountain sucks for snowboarding. Like it's just not made for it. But I had so much fun just chasing after them, and they ski so fast. Like it's so different. It's I feel like a lot of snowboarders are just like, or maybe me, just kind of go slow and like try and hit every little bump and ollie off it and then stop and hit the cat track and stop and do this. And these skiers are just like, wow, wow, like going so fast, and I just had a blast. And I think the animosity between skiers and snowboarders is stupid, and I think that riding at Aspen Mountain with my skier friends really made me sad about Alta, just because it's, I'm really kind of just like sick of all the mountains here. I'm just kind of burnt out on the runs and, just the same people and the same place and the same thing. And it's so sad that I can't go to Alta and like, I have a bunch of climber friends who are skiers and they all ski up at Alta. And like, I just think it would be sweet to ride at a new mountain and go chase around my skier friends. I mean, it's so sad, right?
I think it's generational too. We grew up I grew up being discriminated against as a snowboarder, and going to the mountain and having to explain myself to get a lift ticket, and then having to go through the gauntlet of getting on the chairlift. And anybody from the mountain could come up to me at any time and say that my leash wasn't on correctly or that I shouldn't be there or all these things. So then you develop this us and them mentality. And it's almost dead now. I go over to the park at the mountain across the street from my house, and the crews are snowboarders and skiers. And if they're hanging out on the by the fire, at the bottom of the hill, I have to look at their boots to find out if they're a snowboarder or a skier. Everybody's getting along really well. So a lot of the people that I see, myself included, I have a spray skier sticker on my snowboard, or old guys that are like trying to keep the hate alive. Like you haven't dealt with your trauma from being a kid or something.
Yeah, it just, I mean, I get it, but it just seems like, get over it, like we're all just people and we're all just doing whatever it is that makes us happy. It doesn't matter what you ride. It matters who you are. It matters your attitude. Your attitude matters. And when you're the guy who's like, fuck skiers, man, like you're being fucking lame,
Yeah, there's really more in common than there is different. You're both on a mountain. You're both on a PTEX device with metal edges, and you're trying to go down the mountain and have fun. Yeah,
it's reverse racism. It's like, it's the same thing as skiers being like, oh, those damn snowboarders, and being buttholes about that. Like, I think those skiers suck. Like, skiers who have attitudes about snowboarders are just as lame as snowboarders who have attitudes about skiers. But it's your attitude. It's not what you do.
It sounds like that, segregation now, segregation forever. Like, you know what I mean? I noticed the big thing this summer at Mount Hood was like the park skiers were just like snowboarders. Like the ski racers were really different culture, different, and looked at all of us differently. So it was like, well, dude, like, we're both riding, the park or free riding or whatever. That's kind of like, we have so much in common. It's ridiculous. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, even race snowboarders, though. I mean, when was the last time you kicked it with like a giant slalom snowboarder? Like I probably have as little in common with them as I do as the skiers who ski a giant slalom.
I mean, maybe if you're training for like a bank slalom or something, like you get some pointers from them. I don't know. I never really raced on a snowboard. I never really wanted to go fast. I wanted to like take my time.
Yeah, I was on the snowboard team when I was young, and I remember this. They were doing photos for like some like parent like conference or something, and we had to go to the race course because the snowboard team had the freestyle team and then the racer team, and they were only doing photos on the race course. And I was like, I've always been kind of like, you don't tell me what to do. And I got into kind of an argument with the head coach, and I was like, why can't they come shoot photos in the half pipe? Like, I don't race. Why would you want a photo of me racing? And he's like, this is where we're shooting photos, and you need to just go take a run through and get your photo. And so the snowboard race skates are like triangles, right?
Yeah, not really. I don't know.
I do. I used to have to set them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're basically like triangles, and then there's like the little soft part you can hit with your boot or whatever. But so I just ended up ollieing over each one instead of going around it.
Hell yeah.
And then I think that coach maybe talked to my mom or something. I remember just getting yelled at like by my mom, like, why can't you just do what you're told?
What a bastard. Fuck that guy, dude. Fuck that. That's like, I always started snowboarding because there was no coach. Like,
Yeah. I mean, but I started snowboarding because it's like I wanted to do that, and our freestyle coaches were freaking awesome. But that head coach, he was the race coach, and it was like, dude, he was just a douche. And man, it was just hilarious though. But that was kind of always my attitude. Like, you do not tell me what to do, and that's gotten me far ways, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. Are you gonna use any of those racing skills for the Baker Bank slalom coming up? Or are you gonna like?
Oh yeah, I think that's one of my keys. Actually, right around this time is when I don't really like snowboard. I snowboard way more like a skier. And this board, that D-Day board I've been riding, it is the most like ski like board I can ever imagine that I've been on. It's so like I've finally gotten used to it after like a year, and it goes really freaking fast and holds an edge really, really well. But it's really like not very playful, but it's really fast. So I've finally gotten into it, and I just go to the mountain and just seriously do like carves and just like go fast and like just turn and turn and turn and basically look like a skier. So it's pretty cool. That's
sick. Talk to me a little bit about that graphic, because you got your boy Lil B, the bass god, on there.
Yeah.
And I got to meet Lil B once, and I have an inner lip tattoo that says bass. And I showed Lil B, nice. And he looked me in the eyes and said, "I love you," and he hugged me. And it was the most amazing moment of my life, or one of the most amazing moments of my life, that he, I had that impact on him, and he had that impact on me. But
we got to get him one of those snowboards.
I think he'd be down. I think, he's open to a lot of things. He tweets a lot about, a lot of open-minded stuff. So I think he'd be down with snowboarding. I've sent him videos with Lil B songs of snowboarding before. And he said, "Love you so much, fam." So.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
My friend Trevor Dopp did that graphic, and he's just all about those guys. And I just wanted a young, hip board that could market to the kids. No, we just thought it was funny and cool to have all these like pretty, like the new generation rappers all on a board.
That's
and
it.
The base was supposed to be hashtag based, which would have been a really cool base graphic.
Why didn't you stick with that graphic?
D-Day just wanted all of their logos on the bottom, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that one never went into production. When it actually came out, those initial pictures, I think I posted it on AJ's Facebook or something, or like messaged it to him right away.
Yeah.
Hashtag rare.
Are there any samples of it or anything out there?
With the base graphic, with the hashtag based? No, they never made any samples even of it.
Wow.
Damn.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I know. But now those boards are collector's items, so,
Exactly.
The task force bitch mob will protect those boards at all costs.
Yeah, I'm just gonna. If you guys want one, though, we can probably work out a price.
Exactly.
Rent's coming up.
Exactly. So, a couple of questions here as we wrap up. Out of everything that you're doing physically, like climbing, snowboarding, we didn't even talk about skateboarding. Yoga, if you could only really do one for the rest of your life, what would it be and why?
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, that's a hard question. I know. I'm sorry.
I think climbing, actually.
Why do you think that?
You can go to some really cool places all around the world, and it's a lot cheaper than snowboarding. You don't ever have to buy a lift ticket. You don't have to buy a pass. It's usually good weather, so you can camp. And it's a sport you can do well into your 50s. And it's just new, like I really got super spoiled and I had like a really amazing career, and I got to travel all over the world and, fly in helicopters and snowboard. And I just feel like it's never going to be as good as it was snowboarding for me. And climbing is way more accessible to my future,
Yeah, very cool. And there's a a gym by my house that, I shouldn't say by my house, but right down by DC, that gets clamors from all over the world because people come into DC to do all their political business, lobbying, whatever. And there's people, you said, into their 50s. There's people into their 70s that are better climbers than me.
Totally. And you get so fit. Oh my God, your body looks so good too.
Yeah.
Climbers are babes.
Do you
might start climbing. Get those Tinder swipes. Get those to the right up.
Swipe right. Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
I feel like at this point, I don't think I would date someone who didn't climb. Actually, it's kind of a deal breaker.
Wow. AJ is definitely going to start climbing then.
Would
yeah,
you?
Jay, come
So
on.
so instead of the mirror selfie, it's got to be like a climbing selfie on Tinder. Is that what gets the swipe right for you?
It at least gets me looking at your second picture for sure.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Yeah, I swipe left pretty quick, I would say.
I checked with my wife, and she told me, even though it would be research for the podcast, that I cannot have a Tinder. So I don't understand what you guys are talking about at all.
Oh, well, you guys in couple land, you guys don't need to worry about it.
It's not that fun, Nate. I mean, well, it is.
It's depressing. But you know what's fun is telling, like, I have a couple friends who are, married or in long-term relationships, and I kind of feel it like it's my job to tell them about dating, just so that it like reassures their relationship, so that they can go home after hearing all these like crazy horror stories and hilarious episodes, and they can go home together and be like, oh my God, I love you, honey. Like, I'm so happy we found each other.
Right, and I don't have to go and find you again.
Yeah, exactly. So I do a public service for all my friends in relationships.
Do you have any kind of like parting words of advice for girl snowboarders who are looking to make a career out of snowboarding?
Get an agent and go to the X Games.
That seems to be it right now, right?
That's horrible advice. I just watched that video of that young girl who did the first double cork for women.
I saw it in a headline.
Anna Grasser or Anna Grasser.
Yeah, I don't know. She's like Australian or something. But it's so funny because it's like that's snowboarding now, like Red Bull, special cameras, and like she's going to be the next big thing, maybe, maybe not, but I can't imagine trying to come up against that. I would just say maybe be true to yourself. I really love what Danielle's doing. She's, no apologies. She's just being her. And I think it's really scary for people to market her because she's pretty raw, but I would love to see someone like take a chance on her and really like get her going,
She is going to be successful because she's smart enough to use the tools that were available to her with Kickstarter and everything and really just do it.
Yeah.
Like the money isn't an object for her. She was like, I'm just going to fucking do it. This needs to happen. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if she continues along that path where she doesn't need somebody else. I mean, you look at all of the snowboarders that don't have board sponsors, but have like an outerwear logo on their board or, some bullshit signature of their name on the bottom of their board. The model's changing. You don't need the traditional model anymore. So I think that's great advice. It's really kind of like choose yourself.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, believe in yourself and believe in your dreams and just, if you want to make it as a pro snowboarder, try really, really hard and get better than everyone else and find people that are going to, showcase that. And if no one else is, then you should start.
I forgot to ask Laura. No, stop it. To follow Laura along into her next chapter, check her out on Facebook at Laura Hadar, Instagram, HADESLIFE, and check out her store, feistgallery.com. As I mentioned before, next week's episode might be delayed because I'm going on a road trip to Mount Bohemia. If you happen to be a local up there and you want to meet up and show us all of the secret stashes on the mountain, please reach out to me via email at nate@shredsouls.com. That reminds me, if you like splitboarding and powder, check out the blog of podcast listener Forrest Gladding. Or is it Glading? I hope that I pronounced one of those right. Either way, the blog address is forrestgladding.blogspot.com. If you like powder, you won't be disappointed. Until next time, peace.
Thank you for listening to the Not Snowboarding Podcast. To hear more episodes, go to www.notsnowboardingpodcast.com.